Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers and sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date, Monday, January 18th, 2016. Yeah, it was a little bit stormy, tornado-related weather over the weekend. And hopefully my colleagues up in the North Palm Beach area is doing well or some damage was done. And a little flood zone where I was at, but no big deal. So, at least in this day, people went to pay homage to the late Dr. Martin Luther King. They had a parade down on Andrews Avenue, I think from Sistrunk to Las Olas. Nice. It was pretty cool. They got some people with great young kids with great talent with the bands and all that good stuff. So my dog and I had a good time. Nice and brisky. I love it. Something like to say, hey, who wants to be my date in this time of this great temperature? Yeah, I do get enjoy it really well. So I know a lot of people are talking about the whole thing with Ted Cruz, on his status. Which, if you hear my past episode, I do talk about that on the constitutional side. He's not eligible, but you still got people believe that he's still legit to run for president. I'm not saying everything he votes on is horrible. He has his pros and cons, but he cannot run for president. I say that in good faith. And of course, a lot of individuals are passing. I found out Glenn Fry passed today. Iron Mike Sharp, professional wrestler. And of course, Clarence Reid, I just found out earlier this morning, hanging out, checked on my Facebook. It's a real shame with him, with his diagnosed with liver cancer, but he was in hospice with his members of his family. So at least he did pass in peace. So I'm going to actually be talking about a couple articles pertaining to this. And first off here, this is from Rolling Stone, came out yesterday, and it's by Daniel Krebs. And it's here, Clarence Reid, R&B singer known as Blowfly, dead at 76. It reads here, Clarence Reid, the R&B singer who moonlighted as an innovative masked and explicit rapper, Blowfly, passed away Sunday. He was 76. Reid's death comes just days after it was revealed that he was admitted into a South Florida hospice care facility as he suffered from terminal liver cancer and multiple organ failure. A spokesperson for Reid confirmed the singer's death to Rolling Stone magazine. That's that. Clarence Reid, the genius, known both as given name as Blowfly and the Masterclass, passed peacefully today, January 17th, in his hospice room, which I'm correct, it was in somewhere in Oakland Park, plantation area, not so sure. That's like west of Fort Lauderdale. Reid's longtime collaborator and drummer Uncle Tom Bowker wrote on Facebook, his sister Virginia and I thank you for all the love have shown this week. We also thank you for supporting Clarence's 50-plus year music career, especially these last few years. We love you. We'll keep you informed of the service and tribute performances in Clarence's honor. I'm going to have to try to attend that too. Pay my respects to the man. And probably go to one of his tribute performances. Have some fun with all my brothers and sisters out there. Artists like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Flea, Ice-T, Flaming Lotus, DJ Quick, Pete Rock, Ruin the Jewels, ELP, and many more have turned to social media to pay tribute to the one-of-a-kind artist who had an unbreakable impact on many in the soul and hip-hop community. I had the privilege of playing with Blowfly. So much joy. Rest in peace, Clarence Reid, Flea tweeted. While Ice-T wrote R.I.P. in respect to the original. Flea appeared on Reid's Shake Your Ass in 1991 and Riotous Funky Party video 2 years later. Flying Lotus also posted a photo of one of the iconic masks worn by Blowfly, which he gifted to the Los Angeles producer. In the 2014 interview with Rolling Stone, Public Enemy frontman Chuck D spoke to Reid's influence on the group's landmark 1989 hit Fight the Power, specifically the verse calling Elvis Presley and John Wayne racist. Blowfly had a record called Blowfly's Rap, a.k.a. Rap Dirty, in 1980. Chuck D recalled, there was a line where one of the characters in the song was a Grand Wizard of Ku Klux Klan, and basically he had a lyric, well, I don't care who you are, motherfuck you and Muhammad Ali. That's just what it says here. As one of the main songwriters for Miami label TK Records, Reid penned a string of songs in the 60s and 70s for numerous soul funk artists, including Gwen McCrae, Rocking Chair, Betty Wright's Clean Up Woman. He also wrote tracks for Casey and Sunshine Band, Sam and Dave Bobby Bird before giving the birth to Blowfly. His outlet for performing comedic, explicit songs that over the years have traversed in genres of soul, R&B, and hip-hop. Blowfly is considered one of the earliest rappers. He laid the foundation for hip-hop with Shake Your Ass and Rap Dirty. Taught everyone that their dick could fly, Bowker tells Rolling Stone. that's Clarence Reid for you too, by the way. I met the man and seen him play. Always had a blast. His debut, the real, his debut, the Weird Wild World of Blowfly was released in 1971, with Reid's alter ego releasing upwards of 25 albums since then. Bearing like Porno Freak, Blowfly's Party, Blowfly and the Temple of Doom, and Fahrenheit 69. His life was chronicled by Jonathan Vermatsky's 2011 documentary, The Weird World of Blowfly, which found the singer touring the United States and attempting to reclaim and augment his legacy as both jovial, parodist, and serious R&B vocalist. Through mostly the former, in the film, Reid explains how, as a child, he would pass the time working on a Georgia farm by creating dirty lyrics to popular songs to anger his white bosses. They ended up loving his X-rated renditions. While the explicit nature of his music ensured that he never broke into the mainstream, Blowfly influenced many hip-hop stars. Blowfly's a legend, Snoop Dogg told Nardwuar, and thanks to his crazed live performances, he maintained a fervent fan base, one that helped raise the necessary funds for the singer when his house was in danger of foreclosure in 2014. Prior to Blowfly's death, Bowker promised the rapper would release one of his last LP this year titled 77 Rusty Trombones. While most performers sit on their laurels in their later years, Clarence constantly wrote new material and grinded towards dates like the 20-year-old, Bowker says. He treated gigs at Halloween house parties in suburban California as the same as arena gigs in Germany and the massive Australian festivals. He never refused an autograph or an opportunity to tell a dirty joke. He was once in a century talent, and it was an honor to reintroduce him to the world these past 12 years. And I could say I am very good friends with Mr. Bowker, Tom Bowker himself. I had to work with him. He used to promote shows. And the documentary he did about Blowfly was amazing. He contacted me and said, hey, come down to Kendall. I was in Fort Lauderdale. Come down to Kendall and we get together. A bunch of us going to see the documentary. And it was really amazing what Clarence Reid did. His great achievements that he never got credit for. And Tom Bowker gave me take the initiative on putting him on the stage again before he passed. Seen him a few times, worked with him at Churchill's. And I took a friend of mine to see one of his shows. It was Tom Bowker's birthday. It was that and on the Anti-Scene. Interesting mix, but we just have fun doing it. And we just had so much fun. And Clarence, he was just one of those dudes, man. One of a kind, prototype. And like I told people, if you go to my Facebook page on Instagram, I said, without Blowfly, there wouldn't be a Two Live Crew. And Luther Campbell knows that I'm right. And I say that in love and in good faith. It's just a shame, just another example of good people passing. But at least he left some great songs, great music. And his legacy will never, never be tarnished or perish by any means. It's just really interesting, sad, morose times when you think about it. These great musicians, even Lemmy, David Bowie, Dan Barry, all these great musicians and performers are dying of cancer, including Glenn Frey, which I found out he passed away today as well. And that's what I tell all my friends out there and everyone. You live once, you value it. We all have a purpose in life. And even a man like myself always has a safeguarding nature. Now I'm just opening up to a few people that deserve it. I've always been like that. And I'm a little bit excited optimistic on this year. Meet interesting people, go out, do some little dating here and there. But I've been low key. People that know me, I've always been like a lone wolf, a nomad. It's based on my past history, like what I learned about the cocaine cowboy when I knew about the cocaine cowboy era, a lot of materialism, how it really affected people's lives, and I didn't want to get succumbed to it. So this is just one of the articles. It is a nice one too by Daniel Kurt Krebs. He did a real good job. I'm not a big fan of Rolling Stone magazine. However, they got some good writers. So I would say this is really nice. And then there's another one here. Came from the Guardian under music, Guardian Music. It says here Clarence Reid, also known by stage name Blowfly, has died at age 76. Blowfly was renowned for making X-rated, often comedic party records from the 1970s onwards and has been described as the godfather of hip hop due to his influence on his genre. His work has been sampled by Beyonce, Wu-Tang Clan, DJ Shadow, Eazy-E, and the Avalanches, among others. According to a statement on his Facebook page, Reid died on 17 January from liver cancer. Statement written by his drummer, Tom Bowker, says, Clarence's sister and I thank you for all the love as shown this week. We also thank you for supporting Clarence 50 plus years music career, especially these last few years. We love you. We will keep you informed on services and tribute performance in Clarence's honor. Tribute has poured out from musicians and Run the Jewels, rapper LP, Chili Pepper bassist Flea, who appeared on Read Shake Your Ass, as hip-hop producer Just Blaze, who called him a forefather. Flying Lotus shared a picture of one of Blowfly's famous glittery stage masks with the message, thank you for the insanity in the mask. According to Bowker, Blowfly will release one final album, 77 Rusty Trombones, which is out in February. Definitely, folks, get that album, pay your homage, and hopefully just keep, if you're down in South Florida, try to hit his funeral, especially his tribute performance. Even myself, I want to go down there, have some fun, pay our respects to the one of a kind, the innovator, Clarence Reid. And hopefully I bring my candidate down as well. We'll just see what happens. Just gotta follow through. You're probably like, how come you call me a candidate? Well, like I said, we're just still we're friends. So if you want to pick my brain, it doesn't bother me one bit. But I'm not gonna say any names out of respect because I'm not here to exploit by any means. But it'll be nice. Check out my realm. So like I said, man, I'd like to thank Mr. Tom Bowker, man, for putting him out there again. I love the guy. Sometimes we drive each other crazy once in a while, but we still have fun. We crack jokes all the time. So, hey, in the world of the music industry, it's in our blood. Even though I'm a stagehand, it's in my blood for all these years. And when people tell me what to get a real job, I go, I'll probably beat my head into a wall and be miserable. So, once again, I pay eternal homage to Clarence Reid, also known as Blowfly. Thank you for being a big inspiration to all these musicians and artists, etc. And your soul shall remain forever free. And hopefully, I'll try to get some more info. If not, I'll post on my Facebook page. So don't be shy. Hit it. Hit Facebook or Twitter. All right? Okay. Well, speaking of that, a couple little political things I'm going to add here. This one here comes from Price Economics. Interesting. Came out January 16th of this year. It's entitled, How Police Officers Seize Cash from Innocent Americans. Yeah, guilty till proven innocent, right? Not the other way around. That's what you call tyranny, I would say. It says here, on February 17th, a 24-year-old college student named Charles Clark checked a bag at Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky International Airport and parked himself in a chair near the boarding gate. Having visited relatives, he was in high spirits and eager to return to his home in Florida. But Clark day took an unexpected turn. Two uniformed men, an airport police detective, and a local drug enforcement administration officer approached by Clark and corralled him into a fluorescent back room. His checked bag sat on a table. One of the men turned him in and grunted, "This smells like marijuana." An extensive search ensued, which yielded no trace of drugs in Clark's luggage, but buried between T-shirts In the young man's bag, the officer discovered something of greater interest. $11,000 in cash. Oh my goodness, that's a sin, according to the scumbags in blue. The Uncle Toms with the badge. The cash earned through 5 years of hard work at fast food restaurants and retail outlets represented Clark's life savings, money he intended to use for tuition fees. But authors didn't buy his story. Based solely on the fact that his bag smelled like weed, they claimed that the $11,000 was related to drug trafficking and seized it. Could we say kind or sort of? It's the only way. Assumption man with a badge. Officer Assumptuous, I would say. Under the umbrella of civil forfeiture, officers of the law confiscate millions of dollars in cash from thousands of individuals like Charles Clark every year. In doing so, they need proof that the money is obtained through illegal means. They do not need to file a criminal charge. The law flips the American justice system upside down. The burden of proving innocence is on the suspect, and if he or she can't do that, the property is fair game for officers to take. Mao Tse-tung would be extremely proud, right? Using cash as unjustly seized from Americans, police departments across the nation buy firearms, SWAT gear, flat-screen TVs, and a slew of other goods they deem to be essential to operation. But how exactly is this legal? Why is such a crazy procedure permitted in a country that prides itself on civil liberties? I call it natural-born rights to be exact, but we'll continue on. A brief history legally stealing from other people's stuff. In the United States, government uses two methods to seize cash or other property. First, the criminal forfeiture requires that person be convicted of a crime before his or her property is taken. Second, civil forfeiture requires neither conviction, not any proof of wrongdoing. Here is the action taken, a specific piece of property rather than a person, leading to an interest case. Names like United States versus $124,700 in U.S. currency, or United States versus 664,695 pounds of shark fins. The origins of civil forfeiture are often traced back to the British Navigation Act, a series of maritime laws created in the mid-17th century to distinguish between trading vessels and mandated that all ships importing or exporting goods should bear the British flag. If you see golden ridges around those flags, it's reference British maritime law, but I will continue on here. Any ship that did not do so, regardless of whether or not it broke the law, it could immediately be seized. Settlers in American colonies saw such forfeiture laws as unreasonable searches and seizures in which deprive a person's life, liberty, and property without due process. Nonetheless, Congress adopted its own version of civil forfeiture, allowing government officials to seize the property of anyone who failed to pay his or her taxes. Over the next few centuries, government only sporadically utilized civil forfeiture through various derivations of these laws allow authorities to seize property without a criminal conviction. See, some of these people in Congress still support this law today. Punch them in the confounded mouth. While the police only occasionally took advantage of civil forfeiture in the early 20th century, it truly exploded in popularity in the 1980s with the rise of the drug wars. In 1984, President Reagan enacted the Comprehensive Crime Control Act, which enhanced the ability of police officers to seize cash from anyone and everyone suspected of a drug crime. The goal was to systematically dismantle the drug world by seizing cash. I'm not going to defend Reagan, but he was a patsy, and George Herbert Walker Bush was pulling the strings because he had Alzheimer's, allegedly. In this deal of this anti-drug atmosphere, the law burden of proof required a civil forfeiture seizures was seen as an asset. Aside its abuse from civil liberties, civil forfeiture poses a major conflict of interest. The police got to keep whatever assets they seized. This gave them tremendous incentive to, in the words of one cop, up in the seizure game. In 1993, Los Angeles Times article harps one of some of these abuses. A small town southern sheriff sees a Rolls Royce from a drug dealer and uses it as his personal car. Local police in Little Compton, Rhode Island, netted $3.8 million in a drug bust and outfitted their cars with $1,700 video cameras and heat detection devices for a police force of 7. The owner of the sailboat lost the craft after a crew member was caught with a small amount of marijuana. Well, I say no victim, no crime. In between 1995 and 1993, authorities confiscated some $3 billion worth of cash, cars, boats, jets, and real estate under civil forfeiture laws. The vast majority of these cases, no evidence of wrongdoing was ever required. Police officers used their own judgment in seizing property. Wow, they probably have an I Love Mao Tse-tung button with that too, right? The Reagan administration championed the efforts as an effective crime deterrent. As one White House attorney smugly told the press in 1989 it is now possible for a drug dealer to serve time in a forfeiture-financed prison to be arrested by agents driving a forfeiture-provided automobile while working in a forfeiture-funded sting operation. But since the only presumption of guilt was necessary, it was not unusual for innocent people, often minorities, to be legally robbed. In one case in 1989, authorities broke into a computer reloader safe and took $120,000 in cash. A few months later, a motorcycle shop owner has his Harley Davidson processed. Neither man was ever charged with the crime. All police needed was a hunch that they'd acquired these items through illicit means. There was no burden of proof. After Sodillo Ray Sotelo, the bike shop owner later told the press, "I believe no one is safe in this country." And here's the interesting manipulation of the law, like the United States versus $25,180 in U.S. currency. That's the defendant. Civil forfeiture case in Nebraska. Today, Sotelo's fear is more prevalent than ever. While civil forfeitures were originally intended to take down multimillionaire drug kingpins, they are increasingly manipulated by, in the words of one Florida police chief, street cops looking took a few $1,000s from the driver by the side of the road. In 2014 investigation, the Washington Post identified 61,989 cash seizures made by federal, state, and local authorities on highways over the past decade, totaling in excess of $2.5 billion. The vast majority of the seizures were relatively small amounts. 50% were under $8,800. And due to the high cost of legal counsel, only 1 in 6 cases were challenged. Most of those pulled over were black Hispanics or belonged to another minority group. None were ever charged with the crime. As the Post writes, thriving subculture of road officers now competes to see who can seize the most cash in contraband. Some officers are good at sniffing out cash that they make a living as consultants, traveling to different agencies and coaching them on the best approaches to utilize civil forfeiture. One of these men, Joe Davis, who run a stop and seizure firm called Desert Snow, single-handedly brought a $427 million over a 5-year period, 25% of which the firm was permitted to keep. Eddie Ingram, an Alabama-based deputy, purports to have brought in $11 million over a similar span. All of our hometowns are sitting on a tax-liberating gold mine, writes Illinois Deputy Ron Hain in a self-published book on cash seizure training. We must turn our police forces into present-day Robin Hoods. Utilizing the tactics these self-proclaimed seizures experts, certain local police agencies have ranked in millions below. We delineated the highest 25 grossing jurisdictions. And I'm going to go, just give you a few here. Actually, the top 3. The top 4 would be fun. The top 4 would be fine, and you can look at the rest of it. Everything's going to be on all my footnotes. Going to be on my Spreaker page. And sometimes you may hit iHeartRadio as well. But if not, just go to my Spreaker page. It'll be all there. Okay. It says here, rank 1, New York City Police Department. This is from 2001 to 2014 now. All right. Police rank by revenue from cash seizures from 2001 to 2014. Rank 1, New York City Police Department. 2,167 seizures. Money, $27.1 million. 2, Los Angeles County Sheriff, California, 2,564, $24.3 million. 3, Los Angeles Police, City, California, 2,375, $18.4 million. And 4, Houston Police in Texas, 789.98, cash seizures, $14.7 million. And the list goes on. It's like it goes all the way down to City of Phoenix. So this gives you an interesting thing what's going on when it comes to corruption as a whole. This is a prime example. But I will continue on here. And the data here came from the using Department of Justice database. Very often innocent people who just happen to be carrying cash become ensnared in seizure stops. The Post elaborate on several such instances. A 55-year-old Chinese-American restaurateur who from Georgia was pulled over for minor speeding on Interstate 10 in Alabama and detained for nearly 2 hours. He was carrying $75,000 raised from relatives to buy a Chinese restaurant in Lake Charles, Louisiana. He got back his money and 10 months later, but only after spending thousands of dollars on a lawyer and losing out on a restaurant deal. A 40-year-old Hispanic carpenter from New Jersey was stopped on Interstate 95 in Virginia for having tinted windows. Police said he appeared nervous and consented to search. You never do that. They took $18,000 and he said he was meant to buy a used car. Always keep your mouth shut. Remember that. None of their damn business what they want. Proceed. A 35-year-old African-American owner of a small barbecue restaurant in Sutton, Virginia, was stunned when police took $17,550 from him during the stop in 2012 for a minor traffic infraction on Interstate 66 in Fairfax. He eventually got his money back, but lost his business because he didn't have the cash to pay his overhead. Thank you, scumbags. Unfortunately, authorities don't just use civil forfeiture on traffic stops. Until recently, the IRS and Department of Justice also seized property due to violations of an arcane structuring law. Federal law requires that individuals report bank transactions over $10,000. That's what happens in banks when you're a bunch of snitches and bend-over Bobs and Uncle Toms and Angel Mamas, okay? If large amounts less than, then they are deposited in separate chunks. The government is sued the account holders trying to intentionally evade the law. Yeah, thought criminal investigators, right? 1984. Terry Dago, the owner of a small market in Fraser, Michigan, learned this the hard way after making several consecutive deposits between $5 to $8,000 in cash. The government cleared out his bank account more than $35,000 without offering a warning on explanation. Jeffrey Richard, Mitch Hirsch, three brothers which co-owned a candy distributing business in Long Island, met a similar fate. A series of cash deposits, all under $10,000, through the suspicion of authorities, who then used civil forfeiture law to seize their $446,000 account. Thank you, pieces of garbage. I love calling these scumbags out because they're pieces of trash that could never get respect from me. Police occasionally put seized by police decals on possessed cars, drive them around to remind everyone that the civil forfeiture powers via province of British Columbia flicker. That's in Canada. Another attracting scores of negative attentions, including a 16-minute John Oliver segment. The federal government finally cracked down on civil forfeiture laws. Should have been done a long time ago. Early last year, Attorney General Eric Carr, on behalf of the Department of Justice, announced that state and local police departments could no longer take advantage of federal civil forfeiture statutes. Previously, under an equitable sharing law, states have been permitted to involve federal agents in order to take advantage of federal law and seize property. Then profits would be split between the U.S. government and the state and seized municipalities. Huh. Well, I gotta give that chump credit. At least he did something right for once. Asset forfeitures remains a critical law enforcement tool when used appropriately, providing unique means to go after criminal and even terrorist organizations. Holder said in a statement, this new policy will ensure that these authorities can continue to be used to take the profit out of crime and return assets to victims while safeguarding civil liberties. I always say natural born rights. Okay, civil is given. Natural born, you always had them when natural rights, you always had them since the day you were born. Yet nearly every state has its own civil liberty laws, civil forfeiture laws, and the Department of Justice actions have done nothing to curtail their use. While local and state governments can no longer seize property when working alone, they are permitted to work through a federal task force or simply claim a public safety exemption. For local and state police departments, civil forfeiture continues to be a big business. According to the Institute for Justice, the laws in most states allow people to keep 80% or more of what they see, sometimes as much as 100%. For many departments, civil forfeiture makes up a considerable portion of annual revenue. But what exactly these revenues seize? What exactly do these agents do with these assets? Who gets the money and what's it used for? And there's a little tells you all the states, the percentage and so forth. It's pretty damn disgusting too. 60% and all that, 80%. And some places in Florida, it's 80% at least. At most, this whole thing's a total sham, as far as I'm concerned. Paul, name withheld, an ex-police officer who we contacted, tells us during the 17-year tenure, his as deputy in Arkansas, his department received about $500,000 per year. and seized goods. He elaborates on how this money was used. To my understanding, it was set aside to buy things the department needed. New patrol car. Those things aren't cheap. New monitors, riot gear, stuff we needed, but didn't necessarily have a budget for. So when this money comes in, it's considered extra, and we treat ourselves to the basic necessities. According to a 2014 investigation, the police departments have quite a wide range of definition of necessities. Officers in Maryland bought a $1 million mobile command center. The Los Angeles PD treated themselves to a top-of-the-line $5 million helicopter. A small outfit in Douglasville, Georgia, a town of population of 2,000, purchased a 227,000 armored personnel carrier fit for World War III. Departments also rack up millions in small purchases like $637 coffee makers, wow, Amarillo, Texas, or 12,400 flat screen TVs. I don't need that crap. If I had a flat screen TV, I'd probably get my 12 gauge to shoot at it, One Ohio agency spent $225 on a clown named Sparkles. The money I spent on Sparkles the Clown is a very, very minute portion of the forfeited money that I spent in fighting war on drugs, the buying officers told the Post. All this was paid with money seized from Americans, the vast majority of whom were never charged with any crime. In an instance where your department seizes an item rather than cash, it has two options. They can either liquidate it or convert it to the public, use it Reid in the police force, retired Nevada Officer Tim Dees tells us. We seized a really, really nice boat, he tells us. The sheriff repainted it, then used it for a pyramid lake, out on a pyramid lake 40 miles northeast of Reno, Nevada. If you can put an asset to a legitimate use, that's fair game. For liquidated items, and most departments are not permitted to spend the process on personnel costs, overtime pay, hiring new officers, etc. Usually it's hardware, says Dees. Vehicles, guns, weapons. Not so much practical things as things the high-ranking types to buy to pretend that they're in charge. Beyond the troubling effects civil forfeitures has on innocent people, the law is inherently problematic since the profits of these seizures are kicked back to the departments overseeing them. They have an incentive to ramp up their practices, often without professional discretion. So it's like I said, they all want to assume, they kind of, sort of, and all that good crap. Okay, it says here, one ex-officer explains it to us this way. Our command staff and local agencies are tasked with finding as much money as they can to work with, making what they find stretch as far as they can. Local municipal agencies, in my experience, are funded with sales tax revenue within the city in question. In a tough economy, it's probably the case that sales are down and crime is up. That's creating a financial pinch when resources are needed that much more. So if there is that means by which decision makers can legally procure additional assets in order to shore up budget shortfalls, they are surely going to do their homework and make it happen. The problem is that very often the focus of these departments is more on obtaining money than upholding justice. Civil forfeiture, which allows police to seize cash and other property without pressing any criminal charge, making this too easy for them to accomplish. Since Chris Clark has yet to recoup his $11,000 life savings. That's on the whole Institute for Justice. Today, Chris Clark continues to fight to get his $11,000 back. Nearly 2 years after his college savings were seized by the authorities at the airport, he has yet to recoup a penny. The ramifications of his financial loss has been wide-reaching. He's moved back in with his mother. He had to reach out to family members for monetary support without cash to pay up front. He's resorted to student loans, putting him thousands of dollars in debt. Currently, the Institute of Justice, a law firm that seeks to protect simple Americans' freedoms, is assisting him. But once civil forfeiture money is seized, it can be incredibly challenging to get it back. Even with a good legal counsel, Clark, like thousands of others, his predicament faces an uphill battle. It is ridiculous, he said earlier this year, for treating innocent people like criminals. And you can join their email list too. So definitely check it out. I do find this absolutely nefarious and unacceptable. And any of these cops or anyone who supports these forfeitures are nothing more than Uncle Toms and Aunt Jemimas to the system. And I don't give a damn if you like what I said or not, because you don't mean dilly squat. Because you folks out there, Believe wear the badge and think your crap don't stink. Your manure, your vapors, anal vapors are more potent, or much as potent as mine. I'm not here to go after the police as a whole. There's some great honorable people out there. But stuff like this, I condemn with a passion. Okay? If you guys think you're tough, I dare you go out there with your badge wearing Mao peasant suits. That's all you are. Bunch of Mao peasants. Deep down inside, you know I'm right. And I can recommend all those folks do a class action lawsuit to all these individuals when that time comes. Title 42 U.S. Code, Section 1983. Your rights been violated, you need to be compensated. Put these bastards out of business. Even if they take their pension plans, too bad, because why you should suffer from their ignorance. They fail to uphold their oath. Why treat them as your friends? People like that are your enemies. That's all I gotta say about this. I know I've been a little bit. All right. Another interesting article here. Guys, it came from David Icke about Hatton Garden. Another child molester, I would say, right? Yeah, child abuser. So yes, from the Mirror. Yeah, it comes from the Mirror. But I always like David Icke's stuff. We share information all the time. We follow each other on Twitter. I know, repeat myself, and one of my colleagues was pretty amazed that he follows me, some ragtag maverick like myself. I'm not even a millionaire for goodness sakes, but you know what? I enjoy doing this because I'm inspired, not hired, and you know what? I think that's fantastic because you got a lot of people out there are being paid to do this and they're being told what to do. But I have free will, free reign, and I use overhead as much as possible. I go through guidelines in my own terms without making any egregious misconduct. All right, says here, Hatton Garden Heist leader found sick pictures of Tory child abuser in a deposit box on earlier job. Brian Reeder, known as the Governor, and his gang left pictures on the floor for police to find, only for the Tory cabinet minister's crimes to be hushed up. Hatton Garden's heist boss, Brian Reeder, was horrified when his gang broke into a bank vault was found sickening photos of leading politicians abusing children. But the notorious crooks were shocked further when these thieves left the pictures for police to find, only for the Tory cabinet minister crime to be hushed up. Reeder, known as the Governor, is facing jail for planning last year's 14 million pound Hatton Garden raid, and claims about his previous high-profile break-in can now be revealed for the first time. The images are said to have been found in a stash safety box in 1971 when the gang tunneled into a branch of Lloyd's in Baker Street, central London, escaped with a £3 million haul. A close confidant of a 76-year-old career criminal, Reeder, said it was a shock for them when they found photographs of a famous politician abusing children. The gang were disgusted and left them lying on the floor for the vault for the police to find, but nothing was ever done. And there's a vault here in the video on that, okay, so you can watch it on your own time. The government of the time allegedly forced to press to stop reporting of the burglary as a matter of national security amidst allegations raunchy photos of the late Princess Margaret were found in another safety deposit box in the vault. But the latest claims revealed to the Daily Mirror are more disturbing and further evidence of the establishment cover-up of powerful pedophiles. And we are not naming the politician who has since died, was never publicly linked to the allegations of sexual abuse. But we have passed details to the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse, which is set to examine claims against Labour peer Lord Jenner, who died before facing trial for child sexual abuse, and Lib Dem MP Cyril Smith, whose pedophilia was exposed after his death. Inquiry Chairman Judge Goddard said in November, "We will conduct an objective fact-finding inquiry into allegations of abuse by people of public prominence associated with Westminster." The investigation will focus on a high-profile allegation of the child's sexual abuse involving current or former members of parliament, senior civil servants, government advisors, and members of the intelligence and security agencies. It will consider allegations of cover-up and conspiracy and will renew the adequacy of law enforcement responses to these allegations. If the images found by Reader had been made public at the time, it would have caused a massive political scandal. In 1971, he was beginning a career criminal spanning 5 decades, which would involve him in raids worth more than £150 million and make him Britain's biggest thief. His gang has spent months planning the Baker Street job. They rented a leather goods shop 2 doors up from the bank, and then tunneled 40 feet from the shop basement into the vaults. Once inside, they ransacked 268 safety boxes, nearly 4 times the 73 opened by the Hatton Garden gang. The source said Brown was not well when he did Baker Street because he was only a few months out of the hospital after falling his head on another job. Whew. But he has great stamina and wasn't going to miss a chance of pulling off Britain's biggest ever burglary. The raid remains the largest in British history, despite Hatton Garden was larger. Today, money and £3 million stolen will be equivalent to about £41 million. 4 men were convicted of the crime, including photographer Tony Gavin, and were jailed for up to 12 years, but Reader escaped prosecution. A second source, a gang member, previously told the Mirror in 2008 that child pornography was found in the vaults, but did not give further details. He said we were disgusted and left it in their open boxes so police could trace the owners. We didn't want to take anything that might give us extra trouble. All we wanted was cash and jewels. At the time of the raid, Princess Margaret's marriage to Anthony Armstrong Jones, Earl of Snowdon, was in its final stages. In the 60s and 70s, the Queen's sister was known to the party of the Caribbean island of Mustique. He was pictured with lover Roddy Llewellyn, a landscape gardener 17 years her junior. She says to have taken snaps of male friends frolicking naked, but is not known if any were ever taken of her. The ex-raider would only say, I can't talk about that. Describing preparations for breaking, the crook added, before we got started, myself and an accomplice dressed up in bowler hats and pinstripes and went into the bank. We are unable to measure out the distance from the wall to the vault using an umbrella so we can calculate how far we needed to tunnel, and we didn't end up popping up in the wrong place. They traveled up. They tunneled under the Chicken Inn restaurant next to the bank and used explosives to blast through 3 feet of reinforced concrete. The concrete was not wired to the alarm system, and it was thought to be impenetrable. 8 tons of rubble were excavated and left behind. The raider said, when we finally came up, I was unable to fit through the hole and could only stick my head in, but others got in and grabbed the boxes. Reader was too sick to help with the drilling, but was among those who got into the vault to force to open the boxes. The first source said he was very good at opening them, and soon the vault was piled high with empty boxes. One of the boxes belonged to Michael X, a drug dealer and Black Power leader, who was convicted of murder and hanged in Trinidad in 1975. The story of the break-in was made in the 2008 film The Bank Job, starring Jason Statham and Daniel Mays. There's a trailer for that too. So very interesting. You got banksters, bank robbers, child molesters, and all that. So very interesting stuff here. And people getting exposed little by little. And I remember the time on the book by David Icke, The Biggest Secret, he talked about these pedophiliacs, from areas of the world. They're all part of that same network. And people laughed at him, and I always question that too as well. Now they're being exposed little by little. I remember there was an article in the Guardian talking about before when people said it was a conspiracy theory, it's not a theory no more. If you can look that up, I think David, I read about it. I read about it too in my past archives, and unfortunately, I don't recall when, but I do have it. Even I do a little looking on my footnotes on this breaker. But it's really sick people out there, man. Thieves, molesters at the same time. But like I said, things are starting to haunt these folks. They get a lot more, but they could chew on. Man, I gotta do a little crack in the back here. Needed that. Yeah, that's awesome. But like I said, my friends, you always gotta pay attention. You got people from higher up, so they can do what they want, but it is blowing back in their face. Well, I'll say this. Finally, came from the 10th Amendment Center.com by Mike Meharry. This one's entitled, I think it came out today if I'm correct, right? Let's check it out here one moment. Yeah, January 17th. Yes, it came out yesterday, so that's fine. And this one's entitled, Nebraska Bill Will Restrict ALPRs, Help Block National License Plate Tracking Program. It says here, a bill filed in Nebraska legislature would put limitations on the storage and sharing of information collected by automated license plate readers by law enforcement in the state, and place significant roadblocks in the way of a federal program using states to help track the location of millions of everyday people through pictures of their license plates. Senator Matt Hansen, Democrat, District 26, introduced LB 831 on January 8th. The legislation will restrict the use of ALPRs to a specific law enforcement function and place strict limits on the storage and sharing of any data collected by such system. LD 831 will allow police to use an ALPR for a range of law enforcement activities, including locating missing persons, persons with outstanding traffic and parking violations, vehicles in violation of registration requirements, and persons subject to arrest warrants. The bill's strength lies in strict limits on data retention and sharing. Government agencies will be prohibited from retaining data more than 6 months without a warrant, a court-issued preservation order, or in the information is in part of an ongoing investigation provides the data and is confirmed match to an alert. Any data retained as part of an ongoing investigation must be immediately destroyed at the conclusion of the investigation. LB 831 prohibits agencies from using or sharing LLP data from any purposes beyond the specific law enforcement applications enumerated in the law. This will prevent sharing of data with any agency not directly involved in an investigation. The bill stipulates that any data entering manually into the system by an officer must be purged at the end of his shift. Finally, legislation mandates strict reporting requirements for agencies using ALPRs. Passage of LD 831 will prevent the state from creating permanent databases for using information collected by ALPRs and would make it highly unlikely that such data would end up in a federal database. Impact on federal programs. As reported on the Wall Street Journal, the federal government, via Drug Enforcement Agency, tracks the location of millions of vehicles. They have engaged in this for nearly 8 years, all without a warrant or even a public notice of the policy. State and law enforcement agencies operate most of these tracking systems paid by the federal grant money. The DEA then, taps into the local database to track the whereabouts of millions of people, for example, active driving, without having to operate a huge network itself. And the majority of the federal license plate tracking data comes from state and local law enforcement. Passage of LD 831 would take a major step toward blocking that program from continuing in Nebraska. The feds can't access data that doesn't exist. Data means no federal plate tracking program. 10th Amendment Center and Executive Order Director Michael Bolden said. The law enforcement generally configures ALPRs to store the photography, the license plate number at the date, time, and location of vehicles, but according to newly disclosed records obtained by the ACLU via a Freedom of Information Act request, the DEA also captures photographs of drivers and their passengers. This is interesting here. According to the ACLU, one internal 2009 DEA communication stated clearly that the license plate program can provide the requester with an image that may include vehicle plate numbers and front or rear, photos of visible vehicle's occupants redacted, and a front of and near overall view of the vehicle, clearly showing that occupant photos are not an occasional accidental byproduct of technology, but one that is intentional being cultivated. A 2011 email states that the DEA system has the ability to store up to 10 photos per vehicle transaction, including for occupant photos. With with the FBI rolling out a facial nationwide recognition program last fall, and the federal government building biometric databases, the fact that the feds can potentially access stored photographs of drivers and passengers along with detailed location data magnifies the privacy concerns surrounding ALPRs. Passage of LD 831 would represent a first good step toward putting a big dent in the federal plan to continue location tracking and expanding its facial recognition program. The less data the state makes available to the federal government, the less ability they have to track people in Nebraska. Next step, LD 831 was referred to the Judiciary Committee. It will have passed the committee by majority vote by moving on to the next step in the legislative process. There's a link for that to support the bill. There's other states you can use this link as well. Yes, I am very pleased to see this. But the truth of the matter is, the whole thing is called 10th Amendment. If the federal government thinks they can overbound the state's jurisdiction, they can't. If that's where they got the 10th Amendment. And any questions, look up Federalist Papers 46 written by James Madison. Once again, I was gonna keep beating that drum, okay? States' rights drum. And some people think it doesn't exist. No, it can be implemented. So this is one thing I gotta say. What Nebraska's doing is awesome, and every state needs to follow through. Include so everyone who's listening to the show within the United States should go get check out these links and below and take the initiative. Doing it, set up a rough draft and deliver these to the people to your servants, elected servants, because they're official, but servants, or knock on their door and hand it to them and have a nice little chat. Okay, so I say this, awesome to the state of Nebraska. Everyone else needs to follow through. Okay, and that is it, my friends. I'd like to thank everyone for listening to the show. Plus, feel free to download and share this throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, compliments, criticisms, love letters, hate letters, or you got something interesting I should check out, any cool information I haven't heard of, or give me something to pick my brain with, do it. And always, please send your correspondences with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google Plus, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, YouTube, World Truth, Scene.life. Hope I got them all. I'm on Tumblr, but I really touched that. So, but definitely get those ones I replied to. Okay. Or you can email me directly at LokiLuck3, all together with the number 3, LokiLuck3 at gmail.com. Once again, thank you for your time. Let's always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.